of us in Washington, the members of the Congress and the members of this administration owe a profound debt of gratitude.
Pushes for minimum wage reform aren't anything new to American society, with calls for pay rate increases dating back to the Great Depression. Even back then, the path out of socio-economic failure was characterized by increased wages through the New Deal's promise of introducing minimum wage. The current minimum wage is $7.25. That can get you a Big Mac, French fries, and a large soda. That may seem like the perfect meal, but can anyone really live off that? Before we answer that question, let's take a look at the history of the American minimum wage.
According to Patrick J. Kiger of History.com, the minimum wage was first established in 1938 with the Fair Labor Standards Act at 25 cents an hour. For the first time, people were entitled to at least a certain amount of pay for their work. It has been 12 years since the last change to the minimum wage, and as a result, many people have called into question the affordability of living in American society at the current minimum wage. Research from CNBC shows that $7.25 an hour is nearly half of a livable wage, only being able to pay for less than 55% of necessities. However, 40% of Americans are still against an increase to the minimum wage. This begs the question, to what extent should the American federal minimum wage be changed?
The minimum wage should be increased to $15 an hour because of the financial support it would provide to low-income Americans and the proven benefits that have been seen in other countries. Today, we are going to talk about why it should be increased, why some people are against it, and how to combat some of the problems associated with it. Raising the minimum wage seems like a good thing. After all, it means more money for more people. According to a topic overview from Gale and Context Opposing Viewpoints, raising the minimum wage would provide much needed financial support to low-income workers. Providing workers with higher wages leads to increased consumer spending, as low-wage workers typically spend a greater percentage of their earnings than more affluent workers do. Wage increases can improve morale, worker productivity, and company loyalty, which will ultimately translate into higher profits for the employer.
Positive impacts of increasing the minimum wage are truly global. Studies were conducted to assess effects of national statutory minimum wage in Germany in 2015. Effects prior to the reform were moderate negative effects on overall employment, with 140,000 total people losing their jobs. Effects after the reform include acceleration of wage growth and reduction of wage inequality.
Seeing all the benefits, this begs the question as to why we haven't raised the minimum wage yet. That's because there are many critics to the increase of the minimum wage. According to an essay by Philip Cross this year, increasing the minimum wage has adverse effects on the country's standard of living and unemployment and does not achieve its intended goal. A hike in the minimum wage is a method for governments to shift social goals, but the increase in unemployment disproportionately affects young people and does not achieve the government's goals.
Continuing on this, there are other occurrences that establish that increasing minimum wage isn't all positivity, and it requires subsequent actions to balance out the changes. According to Daniel Altman, immigration reform is dying in Congress, and doing it was always a difficult task for the many benefits of immigration that went unnoticed by the people. Employers always look good towards immigrants trying to fill up positions with low salaries. And if the minimum wage rises, then according to economic theory, the demand for workers should fall, but this doesn't always happen. Some employers will always seek replacements for higher paid employees, and when more and more undocumented immigrants see illegal opportunities for this formal work, they will take them. If you want to prevent widespread legal violation, we must integrate undocumented workers into the labor force legally.
However, there are ways we can overcome these problems. According to Jonathan Yeo, many critics against the rise of the minimum wage to $15 an hour say that it will lead to a rise of unemployment. The increase in minimum wage leads to higher costs for businesses and firms, but they can adjust to these costs in a variety of ways. Firms can reduce costs by adjusting non-wage aspects of their job, raising prices to the consumer, and making non-cash benefits, pensions and healthcare, less generous.
Raising the minimum wage isn't a simple decision. While it may seem obvious to give people more money, and there are many benefits associated to raising the minimum wage, there are many negatives as well. However, we are finding ways to combat those negatives, and soon we will be able to safely raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.